All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this um, this week's episode of Welcome to Harnessing AI, a webinar series. I'm very happy to be joined by Crestron today. So we have, let me show you the introductions. We have Fiona and we have Craig joining from the Crestron team here in Europe. We've been working with Crestron for quite some time now to distribution. They have a really cool set of solutions to fit the AI-driven meeting space, but more about that later because they are the experts, and I'm just setting a bit of the scene. We're having Michel Bouman as well today. He will pre-recorded his message and his video. So let's take a deeper dive. So as every, let's say, webinar session, I wanted to share a bit of stats just because I like to, have you use these tools to fuel conversation, but some interesting things, right? So 62% of leaders say they are considering redesigning office spaces for hybrid work, which includes more collaboration and video-enabled spaces. It comes back to one of those, let's say, percentages that I shared in one of the initial webinars, where it's about, only 15% of rooms today are video-enabled. But if 62% of leaders are actually putting this as a tactic, a mission, this means we have a lot of opportunities to go and have productive discussions about how we can better the experience and how we can make sure that we are working in a hybrid and remote environment. Now, this one is as well very interesting, and I kind of rounded up to 80% because obviously a lot has changed over the past months and years, and it depends on the video conferencing platform statistics, but on average, 80% or more meetings involve remote participants. I'm not sure if it's the same for you. I think I'm above the 80%, so I am in the or more type of bucket. But still, even if it is 70% or 80%, that's a lot of the times where you need to consider a remote participant. And the remote participant is joining, from anywhere, but also you have to make sure that the meeting space he is joining into allows for an equitable experience so that every party feels valued when they're around the collaboration table. Cool, just two stats, that's all. Not going to take too much time. And I am missing the video from Michel. Oh no, I'm not, this is behind this. So I'm running a bit of a, let's say, difficult setup today due to some technical issues, joining from a hotel lobby in central London. But anyway, so how do we get to a better working experience? How do we drive AI? Microsoft Teams is the engine. It's the unified communication platform that connects it all. We have Copilot, which is driving the AI infusion, making sure that we get intelligence experience. We get things like live transcriptions. We get things like facilitator agents, translation agents, which is all coming. And also Microsoft Places, which is about where we work, more than how we work, and knowing where people are in their day-to-day when they're collaborating with each other, just help drive specific outcomes. So a person that knows a lot about this is Michel. So Michel, I'm going to share sound because that's needed. Oh, I cannot share sounds. This is funny, right? We need to improvise, adapt. So I'll try and get the video to work. If not, I'll send it to you later. Let's just hand over to Crestron, right? Because that's the reason why we're all here. So Craig, a bit earlier than expected, but the floor is yours. I'm going to stop sharing. And Fiona, of course. Hi.
That's no problem at all, Sven. So hello. So I'm Craig, and my colleague there is Fiona. So we're from Crestron. Fiona is the RSM for distribution, and I'm a solution architect, so I look after distribution and our partners in the UK and Ireland. So first off, I'm going to hand over to Fee just to talk a little bit. For those of you who don't know who Crestron are, there's just a little bit of info on what we do, and I promise she's not going to read every word on there. But over to you, Fee.
Thanks, Craig. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I mean, Crestron to us in the industry is a bit of a household name, but I know that within distribution and the IT space, it's not. So for those, like Craig said, who don't know us, we are Crestron. We are the largest integrator, manufacturer of AV products. We're multinational. We've got an office in every single country, apart from a couple now. We were founded in 1972 on a dining room table. And Dan Feldstein is now at the helm, and he is part of the original founding family. So it has stayed private all of these years. We haven't sold, and it remains at the heart of the family. So we design and manufacture from the ground up. So everything that we produce is a brainchild of our own. We manufacture it ourselves, and it's control automation technology for the audiovisual environment. Our traditional kind of background would have been commercial spaces, so meeting rooms, education, conference rooms, classrooms, but we are also well known in the high-end residential installations. So we have a separate side of the business that does residential, both growing, both still very much at the forefront of the technologies as well. So we have key areas in our kind of landscape, which are control solutions, collaboration, content management, and the integration with the UC platforms. So, sorry, I'm going to cough. So we have the key partnership with Microsoft. Our job is to just enhance their team's experience with our solutions. That's everything from finding the space to content sharing and the uptime management. So I know you said I was going to read every word. So Crestron
No, you didn't.
Flex
You missed a few.
Sorry?
I said you didn't read every word. You missed a few.
I missed a few. So as you see here, it's Crestron Flex. This is our video conferencing system, our Air Media, our wireless presentation system, and our XIO Cloud, which is the remote management side of it. So it all ties together and gives you the full automation and control.
Nice one. Okay, excellent. Thanks for that, Fee. So I'm just going to start with what we talk about, our Flex, which is our family of Teams-based products. So they're all MTROW, so they're all on Windows. We do have Android offerings, but that's not the focus of today. So we're going to talk about what we can do with Windows. The core, as with all of certainly MTRs, Microsoft Teams, is it looks the same, whether it's on your desktop or whether it's in a small meeting room, whether it's in an auditorium or whether it's, you know, in just on your CEO's desk. It looks the same. It works the same functions, same features. We do focus on a few key areas. So audio, of course, you can't have a conference without audio. You can do one without video, but audio is the most important. So that's from user side, and then we have our XIO Cloud, which is what we use to deploy, to manage, and to update systems and software and all the rest of it for our products. So it's not a replacement for ProPortal. It sits alongside. Again, I'll talk more about that in a little while. We also focus on simplicity. MTRs are obviously simple to set up, but from our perspective, it's about what you get, how you do it, standard-based cabling and all that sort of stuff. Again, I'll come into that in a few moments. I just wanted to give you a quick, brief history of our relationship with Microsoft. So again, for those of you that haven't heard of us, and as Fee mentioned, we're all about control, and that's where we came from. But we've been in the space for UC for quite a number of years. You can see from 2004, we created our first room scheduling panel, the guys that sit outside the room and do, you can check in, check out, all that sort of stuff. We created our first link room conferencing device in 2013. We then did the same for Skype. We then created our Mercury, which you'll see in a little while, which was open UC, but also a Skype room. There's also, again, all those sort of things and features. And then in 2018, we released the first of our Flex family. So UC is not new to us. We're not a new kid on the block. We've been around, longer than some of the others. So that's just a little bit of brief history. Another slide here of what we do. So we provide a configuration or a system, either pre-configured or you can build your own. the types of rooms that you want to have within an MTR. So from a small room, you see at the bottom there, with a center of table audio, which some people like, some people prefer, and probably gives a good experience. But also we have some front of room audio, front of room things for those spaces where you can't run cables to tables and desks and all the rest of it. We do have a medium size, so a larger meeting room, again, center of table audio. And then we have some other options for larger meeting spaces. And the one that you can't see that doesn't fit on this slide is the one at the top for custom rooms. So, not everybody's meeting rooms looks like these. You may have custom spaces, auditoriums, boardrooms, all that sort of stuff. So we provide a product that's entirely customizable based on what you need. Just a little diagram here of how to. We have what's potentially a confusing initially model description. So all of our stuff, all of Crestron stuff has a bunch of numbers and letters, but they all generally mean something. So when you look at your price list or you talk to your account manager, what do I need? So UC from our standpoint stands for Unified Communication. So it's a UC product. And then the next bit, is it a bar? So our B and BX. Is it a Mercury or mini Mercury? So it's MM and MMX, and then Mercury, and you can read the rest yourself. And then the size, the number, but is based on the type of room. So if you've got an M70, for example, it's a Mercury, it's for a large room because it will come with extra microphones and so on. And then the C at the end means, in this case, it means Teams. We also have X variants, which are the BYOD, which you'll see on the right hand side there, the little box. It goes with our UC engine, which is our platform. Same across all of our products. Same rack box designed to sit behind a display, for example, or in a rack. So the X variant gives you that BYOD to the desk. So what's a Mercury? What's a BX? What's all this stuff actually look like, and what is it? So this is our MM product, so Mercury Mini, as we called it, and you'll see why that in a second when we look at the bigger Mercury. So it's a small, compact center of room audio. Okay, so you've got microphones, you've got speakers, and you've got the touch controller all built in. Okay, so it's really simple. Sits on a desk, and then everything's there. You've got a nice microphone pickup. You've got 360 microphone pickup, 3 meters 10 feet, as you can see. Again, installation's really simple. It's just USB, just Ethernet, PoE powered. We provide, you may be familiar with that little camera. That's not one of ours. That's a camera by a company called Hudley. We don't have expertise in these small cameras, so we went for the best that we could find to partner with. So that is included. You get all you need in a box. It's a fairly small unit, but it gets delivered in a massive box because we provide all the cabling, all the instructions, everything you need inside a box. So that's the MM. So that's for your small rooms, ideally center room audio. We then have B series. Again, this is our front of room audio for smaller rooms. So we have the big old chunky bar at the top. That's one of our own, has a built-in Hudley camera, has a microphone array, has 2 big speakers. It's a proper solid sound bar. It's very popular with our education customers because it can take a lot of damage. It can be bashed and beaten around, and it's very solid and very good. The next one below, which is our B31, that comes that's a Jabra P50, again from a camera perspective. And these things, it's a great camera. It provides all the the focus you need from its 3 cameras and so on. The controllers in this instance, so rather than the Mercury and the Mini Mercury, which are built in, this has our excuse me, TS1070 touchpad. So that sits on the desk. You can control your Teams room from there, and then your audio and video is provided by either the B30 or the B31 soundbar. So again, we have different, fits different spaces. They both have group framing. They both have all those sort of features that you expect from from a front of room audio. Again, small spaces, maybe up to medium spaces for that. So next we have the M series, the M50. So this is the Mercury. This is the bigger brother of the Mercury Mini. You know, we're not necessarily the best at coming up with names for things, but this does provide a much, you know, for a much bigger space. So we've got, as you can see, 70 meters, 7 meters, maybe 20-foot pickup, 360 microphones, a much bigger speaker. So we've got room in the back there for a decent bass driver, so you get really good quality audio from that box. And again, you see you have your touch screen on the front there for controlling your teams. We also have cable runs for you know, running cables out the back, so it can be really neat. And both of the Mercury and the Mini Mercury are also available with a table mount kit, so you can actually bolt them to the table. Does mean cutting a hole in your table. However, they can be mounted, and they have a 120-degree swivel, so it can be, you know, it can just be put there, people can use it and then move it as they need to. So again, really simple, really effective device. So we then have the 70. So for the larger rooms, the 70 indicates larger rooms. That means we excuse me, add the Hudley L1 camera to that, and we add an additional microphone, of which you can add 2 more microphones. So you can actually have, you know, extend that out to, you know, to a much bigger space. So it covers all, again, the same stuff: nice speaker, nice audio, touchscreen. So yeah, same thing for just bigger. We also then provide, we have a product, an NC, same 70 series, but we don't provide a camera with that. So if you want to start customization, you may have, you know, other types of cameras you want to use with the system. We're entirely free. You know, in the case of Teams, recommend it's a Teams compliant or Teams certified device, but it's there. Yeah, all the nice audio, all the nice stuff, and then you can pop whatever camera on there that you would like to use. So finally, the C series. So this is our custom device. So it comes with what we call the UC engine. So that's the chassis at the back there. You can see with the compute on there, with its various Ethernet connectors, and with its content ingest device. So for getting your wired content into your Teams system. Again, comes with a TS1070 panel. Now this is toughened glass. It's aluminium. It's not a plastic panel. It's very tough, and in my opinion looks pretty neat. We do a WM, a wall mount version, so for those custom spaces where you don't want clutter on the desk, you don't want the panel, we actually have an integrated panel, same size, 10-inch, same spec, same everything else, but it just will fit into a wall, okay, into a nice area there in the wall. Supply your own audio, supply your own video. So again, for those guys using you know, ceiling microphones, ceiling speakers, DSPs, all of that, look, you get all of that, and you can just plug it into our UC engine, and you have a fully customized team system. So we'll just talk a little bit about our standards, but our our wiring. Come on, let's move the slide forward. Thank you. So we don't have any proprietary cabling involved in any of this stuff. We are a standards-based organization, so everything we do is based around standards, be it, you know, AV standards like HDMI, you know, compute standards, USB, sleep power, and that sort of stuff. So there are 2 ways to connect. I'm using the touch screen there as an example, but it applies to the Mercury and so on. You can either power them locally via PoE and then connect them directly to the UC engine. So that will work nicely, but you will have, you know, a cable run there. The other option, and what people tend to use mostly, is entirely independent. So the touchscreen goes onto the LAN, same LAN as the UC engine. It's powered by PoE or a PoE injector if such a thing's, you know, PoE is not available. And then we tell the touchscreen where the UC engine is, and we then basically the user interface comes down to the touch panel. But what that lets us do, apart from simplicity, you know, there's no cables running across desks, all that sort of stuff, it allows us to have multiple touch panels. So if you have a custom environment, maybe, you know, a split room environment, for example, where you have a touch panel on the desk for people to use, but you might also want one on the wall. So depending on the mode, you know, the furniture layout of the room, it might be more convenient to have more than one panel to access your Microsoft Teams interface. Okay, very neat, very easy. Again, things like USB, so audio can be USB. Camera, microphone, come from a soundbar, come from a Mercury, come from, you know, a Shure DSP, for example. So again, really important that everything we do is standards based, and we provide all the cables you need in the box. So you don't have to, you know, come to site with anything that's different. So that's just an example of how we wire a system, how we physically connect it. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit as well is Crestron control. So again, mentioning, as Fee did, all about the, you know, our history, we have the options to run a page flip on the Microsoft within the UI of the MTR. For that, for simple stuff like camera control, for example, you know, turning on auto framing, turning on group framing, or turning off, pan, tilt, zoom, all that sort of stuff, we can simply install that onto our UC engine. Then when you press the room controls button, you can access all those sort of features. And depending on where you are with Crestron and what's available, we can do, you know, potentially many more things. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but it does just, you know, show we've got extra stuff that we can do within the MTR. As I mentioned, all these hundreds and hundreds of different model names, different model numbers, different types. So we have a product picker on our website. That QR code will get you there. We'll also make this presentation available afterwards by Sven, so you can get to it. But it does allow us, you know, you to choose a size of room. What do you want to do with it? What type of form factor do you want? And we'll recommend some of our products. So again, not going to go to too much detail of that. So we've talked about Flex. We've talked about you know, the cameras, the settings, and so on. But we also have another product. So around audio, because again, I said earlier, and you all know, audio is the most important part of a conference. So we have a product called the FlexPod. We can run 4 of these little pods. They have a microphone and speaker, volume control, mute button, red and green LEDs at the top. So they can be moved around. They are wireless. We use DECT, so not Wi-Fi, because that's, as we know, that's always busy. There's always stuff on it. It gets interfered with. So we use DECT. So the FlexPod hub there gets plugged into the UC engine, okay, and connects as a USB audio device. We then pair 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these FlexPods to the Flex hub. And you can then pick them up and move them around, as you can see from the little diagram along the bottom there, depending on your table layout, how many tables you've got. You can see example on the far left there, we've got 2 pods because it's a, you know, simple table. But then further along, the room or the environment has turned into a teaching space. So you now need 4. So it makes for, hence the name Flex, it makes for a very flexible way of providing audio and video. Audio, not necessarily video in this instance. But they're synced together, so when you press mute on one, all the rest mute. Volume, again, is synced together, so when you increase the volume, you increase the volume on all of them. So this is a product that's available as a package, as single devices. So it's neat, really easy way to upgrade the audio in a room, or certainly make it more flexible. That was a quick run through on the MTRs, and I briefly mentioned at the top about XIO. So this is our management portal. So hopefully you've got all sorts of nice Crestron stuff in, you know, maybe you've got some other bits and pieces, and you now want to manage that. Say we're not taking over from the Pro Portal. The Pro Portal is about managing the MTR application itself. What Flex is about is what XIO Cloud is about is managing the physical hardware that sits behind that. So XIO Cloud has been around since 2018, in fact, when we first launched it. So just want to show you a little bit about it. So what does it do? So it's a management platform. So it's about supporting the hardware that is behind the MTR and many other bits and pieces. You know, you've got displays, you've got maybe projectors, you've got audio systems, you've got all sorts of stuff. So how do you look after all that? You know, many people have their own management portals that work with their products, but we try to make this really flexible to allow people to manage not only our stuff, but third-party devices as well. So as it says over there, deploy, monitor, manage, and evolve. So deploy, we can pre-configure stuff. So we'll talk a little bit later about, you know, scheduling panels and those sort of stuff. So it allows a user or yourselves as your dealers to pre-configure a bunch of settings. So if you're deploying scheduling panels, for example, and you know your customer likes a 24-hour clock, they have a specific background they want on them that's company branded, we can pre-configure all of that. Then when those devices are plugged in, they will go to XIO Cloud and they will take that setting. Although all those settings will be applied. Okay, very easy, very simple. We can monitor them, we can look after them. You can see wherever this screenshot was taken from, they had quite a lot of issues going on with 25 critical errors. But that does allow us to, you know, to monitor not only individual hardware, but also spaces, the whole rooms. Okay, and you can see we can also monitor stuff. We can look at occupied rooms. So I've got 98 rooms there occupied. So we can get lots of info. We can gain that occupation status from things like the MTR. All of our touch panels, our Mercuries and that sort of stuff have presence sensors on them. So they will detect when someone sits in front of it or someone comes in a room, and then we can say, well, someone's in that room. It allows you to look after firmware and other bits and pieces on our hardware, and again, and other people's, which we'll talk about in a little while. The basic remote reboot, for example, you know, turn it off and turn it on again. I mean, what percentage of IT problems does that cure? Quite a lot, in my experience. So this allows you to get to any piece of hardware from wherever you are. XIO Cloud, by its name, is a cloud-based service. So you can do it from, you know, from the lobby of a hotel where Sven is, or from an airport, from your desk, from home, wherever you like. So it's really, really, you know, an excellent bit of product. So let me just talk a little bit more about what that does. There's some more numbers here. I'm not going to read that all to you. However, it's a way of, you know, increasing the, you know, your user satisfaction. Okay, because that's important to us at the end of the day. It's all very well having this and that and stuff, but if the users can't use it, then it's, you know, it becomes a useless piece of hardware. So we try with XIO to allow, you know, people to get stuff working quicker and working better. And just to give you an idea, it's a little overview here of what we can do with XIO. As you'll see down there, it's built on or based on Microsoft Azure IoT Hub. So it is an exceptionally reliable cloud service, but it allows us to do lots of stuff. If you look at the top, so native Crestron devices, Flex, our Air Media, which we'll talk about in a moment, things like MVX, content distribution. So it allows all of those stuff to be managed. We also have a bunch of partners, okay, who have XIO direct connected. So Samsung, Shaw, LG, all sorts. There's a nice list available. We can take those things and we can add them to XIO Cloud, so you can manage those third-party devices as well. Like Samsung displays, for example, you can schedule on and off schedule. Not just for one display, instead you don't have to go to the display and press with the remote control and set the schedule up. We can do that globally across a whole environment, either across, you know, an entire country, an entire city, a campus, all that sort of stuff. So you can have displays turn on, turn off. We can also do stuff with third parties, so devices that don't have native XIO access. So you may have some other bits and pieces. So we can either ping them, for example. So it might be a network switch. So you might want an SNMP. It could be a third-party IP camera that we don't have, but we can see if it's alive. Okay, so we can just ping it and see if it's active. So we can do lots of stuff with that, with our own stuff, with our partner stuff, and with effectively any third-party device that you care to name. So that's what we do at one end. That's what comes in. And what can you get out of that? You can get lots of reports. So you can do a room usage report. You can do a device usage report, all sorts of, any reports you like. Because it's on Azure, we can access Power BI through, so you can pull reports on whatever you like. We do alerting. So the system goes down or a room goes down, we can tell you, you can come in and work out the best way to fix that. We have an API which allows you or your customer to pull information both ways. So you can grab stuff, send stuff out. And we have integration. Our first integration partner for Service Desk is ServiceNow. So for those guys that use that, any error that's alerted within XIO Cloud can go into ServiceNow. It can be sent through the usual chain of support. It can then be resolved and then posted back into XIO to say this issue has now gone away. So again, quick overview there of features of XIO. We have two subscription tiers for XIO. We have a free one, so you can do most things. Unlimited rooms, unlimited devices. You just sign up, or your customer signs up, should I say, and away you go. You can deploy stuff, you can monitor it, you can get alerts, and you can update files and firmware. We do have a premium subscription account, which, like many of these things, we just add some more and better functions that you get for free. So the third-party devices I mentioned, you can deploy and monitor those. We have room level monitoring with much more access to analytics for, say, historic data rather than just what's going on now. API access. So that's basically a device count. You pay per X per device, and the guys over at TD there can help you with that. And if anyone wants to try it, any of your customers, any of yourselves, there's a way we can get you a 60-day trial. You can just, crack on, fill your boots and see what you can do with it. So we've talked about Flex, we've talked about the in-room stuff. We've talked about some of the back office things that you can also do. We also have companion products that work alongside our Flex units and indeed independently of the Flex units. So we have a product called Air Media. Now, this is our wireless conferencing system, okay, or content presentation. It's simple, really effective, really easy to use. We have a set of different types of receivers, and you'll see how part numbers evolve over here. So we have AMs, Air Media, 3000, 3100, 3200. WF is Wi-Fi. So we have, again, different price points, different specifications. I haven't included all the pluses and wiggles and minuses here, but we can, again, you can discuss that with the guys, or we can have any questions, you can let us know. So we have those. You'll see from an apps perspective, we have a Windows app, we have an iOS app, we have a Mac OS app, we have an Android app and a Chrome app. So you can do all those sorts of bits and pieces if you want to use the application. We also do support AirPlay and Mirrorcast for screen mirroring. And we have a Connect adapter. So what's the Connect adapter? Let's tell you what the Connect adapter is, and we'll go back to apologies, these are in the wrong order. You may be familiar with similar looking devices. Ours is slightly different in the fact, as we've highlighted there are no drivers. We use DisplayPort alt mode. So you plug it into your USB-C port on your laptop or your phone or your iPad or whatever else you've got, and it acts as a monitor. So as far as the device is concerned, you've got a long old cable running from your device to the monitor. And it's as simple as that. You connect it in, it shares, you disconnect it, and it goes away. So we can integrate that within our Flex product. So we have a mode on there called Flex mode. So within Microsoft Teams, we can simply plug that in, and it will act as the screen sharing function. Okay, again, saves people trying to do, how do I share this? How do I share that? What do I do? How do I make it work? It's really simple from that perspective. Plug it in, share, disconnect it, goes away. It can be used obviously offline, out of a Teams call and in a Teams call. And we have the canvas mode, which you can also use. So if you've got multiple people sharing at the same time, up to 4 screens can be displayed. So we can have up to 4 connect adapters, 2 connect adapters, an iPad, and a Miracast device. Again, whatever you want to do from that perspective, it just keeps things really simple, and can be used entirely offline or online. Okay, within an MTR. Scheduling, I mentioned earlier about scheduling panels. Our first scheduling panel for Microsoft Exchange was back in 2004. Of course, things have moved on since then. Teams panel has been around for a while now. So we're one of the first to provide a Teams panel, a Microsoft certified Teams panel. So we have 7-inch and 10-inch options. They come with a black bezel or a white bezel, so depending on your decor. We have the options of, as you can see there on the side light bars, which show the status of the room. We have an RFID reader, so if you can plug that in, because we have 2 USB ports on the back of that, so people can tap and go to register in. We also have a different set of status signs, so you can see the little one at the bottom there, which are engraved based on what it is that you want them to do. We have an occupancy sensor. So this is slightly different. So this is, you'll all be familiar with those things. When you walk into a room, the lights come on. Ours is slightly different. It's infrared, but it's also ultrasonic, and you'll see the little black bits at the bottom there. So you walk into the room, it wakes up, but it will also know that you're in there, so you don't have to do that after 10 minutes when you're sat in the room and you have to stand up and wave your arms around to turn the lights back on again. They're all supported within the Microsoft Teams environment, but also with XIO. So we saw room status earlier about whether the room was booked, whether the room was occupied, sorry. So we can start to integrate all those things into the scheduling panel. So it sits outside the room typically. But with the occupancy sensor and with the light bars or the signs, we can, if you've got a nice long corridor of meeting rooms, it makes it easy to look down a room and see which room is free. But it also allows us to do certain things. For example, if a room is free, you'll see like that one there, it's green. In the case of a Teams panel, if the room is in use, it's purple. But with the occupancy sensor and XIO talking to Exchange, we can then understand that maybe someone's in the room, but they haven't booked it. So you can have a custom color. You could have it go orange, for example. So you could look down the room, look down the corridor and see, well, there's a room there that's got someone in it, but I haven't booked it. So from an application perspective, it's a Teams panel, same as our MTRs or a Microsoft MTR. We don't do anything to those because that's Microsoft's application. We just provide the hardware on which that runs. So any new features that Microsoft release for MTR OW and for Teams panel will come as it's released. So again, you have that guarantee that the panel will always be up to date. Again, lovely and simple, easy to use, and they're very robust. They're metal and they're toughened glass. We don't necessarily go with lots of plastic. And as you can see, they're PoE powered. So we have scheduling, we have MTRs, we have XIO, we have Air Media. So you take an MTR, and then you've got lots of stuff you can build around that to make things nicer, to enhance the rooms, and enhance the user's experience, both sort of in the room and in the back office, to make those things work better, quicker, faster, and so on. Just a little, as I come to the end here, just a little bit to say about Autopilot for those guys that use it, that are CSPs, or your end user uses them. Because this is a Microsoft product, we support all the features and functions that they use. So Autopilot, from a registration perspective or from a deployment perspective, there's obviously lots to talk about Autopilot for other AI bits and pieces, but that's more from Microsoft to cover than necessarily ourselves. But for those people that do use it, we ship, as you can see on the box, we ship the product key on the box. So you can pre-register, all this sort of stuff. You can rock up to the box, you can scan the code in the app, and that will then take that off to Intune, Pro Portal, pre-configure everything. So once the device is actually plugged in and connected to the internet, you get that out of box experience that you just follow. So again, with Autopilot, with XIO, and with your undoubtedly talented engineers, there's a way to make this a deployment, of a single unit, 10 units, 100 units. There's a way to make it really simple, really easy for users, and honestly really easy for yourselves in certain cases, because if you can pre-configure a whole selection of touch panels or room scheduling panels before you've even got to site, you can rock up, have your engineers fit them on the wall as soon as they're connected. They will all come alive. So that's all I've got for you today. So hopefully it's been interesting, and I'll hand it back to Sven.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Greg.
No problem.
Very, very good presentation. One thing comes to mind, there's a lot of flexibility. You can do a lot of things with Crestron, and knowing the portfolio myself, I know you've missed a couple of things like the HDMI, USB extenders, the M-Lite range, the cabling that we have available, and all these additional accessories which can help you build a space like this. From a UC Engine point of view, all the way to the connectivity, the outside meeting panel. So a really comprehensive system. And everything that has been discussed today is also available to distribution. We have an agreement with Crestron for Europe, which means that in wherever country you're joining from, we have an expert locally who can help you. We can help you with project registration, get a deal ID, and make sure you get those projects to your customer. Now, in each of these sessions, I've gone through a little bit of what we can do from a services point of view. In interest of time, I won't go too deep, but you triggered my mind on something with the Autopilot piece. So know that we within our SYNNEX warehouses can also use Autopilot or pre-configure Autopilot features, so that actually you don't have to touch this, the reseller or integrator. We can just ship it right to your end customer, pre-provisioned and everything, so that it just comes online and registers to XIO Cloud, but all the settings, and has a full-fledged room experience from the start. But the one that I want to talk about to you specifically today in this session is the financial services. So everything that we've talked about, so everything that you can buy on InTouch, that you can buy through SYNNEX, we can put in a service as a service model, integration with finance. It's still a very large opportunity as we're moving into some sort of a SaaS type of model, right? We have the recurring revenue on the licenses, on the collaboration piece, the UC piece. It's one way of selling, the opportunity of scaling rooms with customers. Not think about it as a big investment, but as a spread investment, but then actually make the outcomes more tangible from day one. So again, we can help you with this. I'm definitely no financial expert, but we have tons of financial experts in the company who would be happy to help you on that. Two more things from me. So last time when I spoke, this was happening, right? This was live, the Converge Communications Bootcamp. If you haven't done it, please feel free to register, follow the training course. It's a very good update on what's possible on Teams. As Craig said, it's an application that runs on different hardwares, but the application does drive specific outcomes, specific behaviors. It does need a bit of configuration specifically to work within a Microsoft tenant. But if you do the training and you can get this badge, which is always cool to show how good we are as an industry. But please do so. We're also running some events around Microsoft Teams rooms in these countries. We can snapshot this and send you later. You don't have to read all of them right now. And then last but not least, and I'll keep this up for a bit longer because I usually just close the presentation and nobody gets to scan the QR code, which is unfortunate. But behind this QR code, there is a Microsoft forum. If you are interested in getting more information about Crestron, more information about how we can help you with projects, if you want to visit our experience centers where we have some Crestron kit installed and ready to show you and get really hands-on, please feel free to register, and some of our local team will reach out to you and we'll happily have that conversation how we can get Crestron in the room and make you successful as a business partner. That's it from my end, and thank you, Fiona, thank you, Craig, and everybody for joining today. Wishing you a very pleasant rest of the working day, rest of the Thursday, and until we meet again, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you,
Thank
Sven.
you.
Thanks, guys.